The Evergreen Media Network Studio, powered by Scott Tree Services.
Hey, and good morning, and welcome to another show of Uplifting the Uplifters, where every month we bring in a new uplifter, and today is no different. We brought to you lifelong educator, Doc Peggy Jones. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good.
Before we get to hearing the lifelong educator over here, our show would not be possible if it wasn't for the generosity of two local businesses. First off, we got Adam Ogilvie from Orc Services. Good morning, Adam.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me again.
Of course, you just keep writing checks, bud. And we got Pedro Bernabe, Realtor from Dale Sorensen Real Estate. Good morning, Pedro.
Good morning, Mike.
Thank you. You keep writing checks, too. So before we get to Doc, you guys got anything interesting coming up, or we'll go to Adam? Adam, anything cool from Orc Services?
Oh, yeah. So really active and talking to our legislators and our House representatives lately about the insurance crisis that we're all facing. And I just want to bring to everybody's attention that there's going to be a town hall meeting at the Treasure Coast Builders Association on July 31st. I'm going to be there standing up and talking for everybody about the issues, and I invite you to come join me. We need to let our representatives know. But Pedro, what do you got going on?
Well, since we're here with Doug Jones talking about education and stuff like that, there's the Heroes program that we have at Dale Sorensen, and what that means is it doesn't matter what how much money you make or don't make, but if you are in education with us, you can get up to $5,000 in rebates if you decide to purchase or sell a home through us. And I am currently working with a couple of people with that program, and I think it's great. None of the other brokerages do that.
Wow,
And
$5,000 is a lot of money.
It is something that you can use, go back and use things to upgrade, make your home your own, or any other thing that you may need. So just give us a call. Give me a call. Any questions, and we'll be there to help.
All right. Well, Doc, before we get started here, I think what we all share on this side is we all three have children in the public school system, Doc.
Yes.
I myself, I don't admit it, but we did come from Palm Beach County, and we went to St. Lucie, and so I believe in public education. I know these gentlemen do too. So tell us how you got your start, Doc.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I think one of the first things I want to say is I truly believe when you talk about public education that it's a foundation, one of the main foundations of our country. And I think growing up, I knew I always wanted to be a teacher. And so I went into education and have been in many, many positions in my life. But I think the most impactful position I ever had was as a teacher and how we teach our students and help them grow. But I started almost 50 years ago, which means I'm old, but I have a good spirit and have done teaching, coaching, dean, assistant principal, principal of 3 schools, executive director, secondary. I was at the high school level as principal and in the middle school level, and then at the state level with the Florida High School Athletic Association. And I guess the one thing I would say about my career is that I have loved every position I've been in. And now, I'm a school board member, and actually the most important policy for school board members is we are responsible for the education of these students. So I take that very seriously. And it's just been a career I have loved. I have loved meeting people, parents, students, teachers, and I'm continuing that through my school board position in Indian River County at this time.
Now, one thing that I wanted to remind you, Doc, I'm sure you heard at least 28 times, but Dr. Moore has reminded us we're an A school district,
Yes.
Doc.
Yes.
So that's with the help of some amazing school board members as well. So tell us, what does that mean exactly, that we're an A school district?
Well, Florida grades us all the same way as far as elementary, middle, and high schools. And it just tells us that we're doing a good job. Dr. Moore will say, and I will say quite often, we can never, ever become complacent. We're looking at our grades right now for the year. We'll probably get the school grades in a couple months, but what we will have this year is that we will have gains. Last year we did not because it was a new test. So we're excited when you look at the progress monitoring and where we are. I think we'll still be a solid A, but we're just keeping our fingers crossed. It just shows us that we're doing the job. we are supposed to do with teaching our students as standards and looking at the outcomes, and where we are weak, we need to improve. Where we're strong, we need to look at and help others. But it just means that the state has recognized us as doing a good job.
That's awesome. And I want to go back to impact for a second, and then we have a couple other topics for you, Doc. But I think about impact. I think about a guidance counselor, and I share my own experience. I got two beautiful queens. One just left Oslo. One has one more year at Oslo, and we look forward to our new principal over there. But a guidance counselor, someone who you would think, well, sees the student every once in a while. Mrs. Burson, who you're very familiar with, an absolutely amazing, amazing guidance counselor, and so much more. You know, when my daughter entered the 6th grade, I said, baby, you're going to go for cheerleading. You're going to do this. And she wasn't outgoing as her father here. Yeah. But Mrs. Burson was able to say, baby, don't be worried about this. Now she got out of her shell. Right. And I tell you a common denominator about all these amazing people that I've come across as a father and also as a community member. They all say the same thing. I was hired by Eric Seymour. I was hired by Doc Jones. I think that speaks volumes of the character and the work ethic of both yourself and Mr. Seymour. And we have a lot of greats, but the greats that I've encountered are because of you and Mr. Seymour. And that's one of my mentors. I love Mr. Seymour. And I love to see what's going on with ESC. You know, I'm a huge advocate for these babies when it comes to making sure that they're getting their services. And I can tell you that I see a difference. And, you know, at Team Success, we're starting a new program, Prevention Before Intervention. Right. An IEP or students who have an IEP, that they're getting their services. So it's just great to be able to work alongside. Now, I don't want to say we're going from a positive to a negative here, but Doc, we've been listening for months upon months. Can you share with us, how did the African Americans benefit from slavery, Doc? Can you touch on that for a moment? Because it sounds like an oxymoron, no?
Right.
It sounds crazy to me.
Well, you know, Michael, and I do want to say something about, like you talked about Jayla, Mr. Seymour. I say this quite often because whether you're a teacher, a dean, assistant principal, there's the art of teaching and the science of teaching. Let's just look at teachers. The science is you better know your content. You know, today students can say right away, well, that's not right. They can look it up quickly. But the art is a relationship you establish. And people who make that real connection with our students, our teachers, our deans, our assistant principals, when you have the art and the science, it's just like our students can soar. Because if they realize how much you care about them and want them to succeed, it's very important. Even in high school, students will do a little bit better with a teacher that they really like and respect. It's just the way it is. Yeah. But yes, as far as the curriculum, I wrote a letter to the Commissioner Diaz and Governor DeSantis last year when these standards first came out in clarifications. And I said, basically, you know, this should not be. I just want to read exactly what it says in the clarification. This is for middle school students. Instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. And I just found that absolutely horrific. Is speaking about that, you know, one day after Juneteenth, when I was at the Gifford Historical and Cultural Museum, I just think about that. Nobody had a benefit from slavery. Nobody. So one thing that I put in my letter, and I reminded parents at the last school board meeting, was if you think anything is harmful, your child does not have to sit through that. So I was hoping they would take out that clarification. They have not. But, you know, parents have to realize that if they don't want their child listening to that, they don't have to be in the classroom at that time. Again, I was hoping it would be changed. I know there is more talk about it this year as we go into the school year, but as of this point, it has not changed.
So in other words, as we're counting down about 60-some days for school to start, as parents, we could be listening to our kids coming home saying, hey, did you know, at least they were blacksmiths. This whole slavery thing, not that bad. And maybe, I'm sure it's not going to be taught like that, but I can't even imagine from a teacher's point of view. Right. You know, an African-American teacher to have to be in a room and, you know, not have conversations as to the impact of Brown versus the Board of Education, but to explain how, but look, I don't even know how you would teach that. I couldn't even imagine being African American.
Yeah, where do you begin?
Yeah, exactly. I talked about that at a meeting in Gifford last year, and I thought about the student sitting there and the teacher having to, to teach that. So I'm sure they could talk to their principals and students could talk to their parents. But if you believe that is harmful, and I would believe it's harmful if my children and grandchildren, they don't have to be in the class during that time.
I mean, I would think that the teachers would probably just straight up protest against it.
Yeah.
And then the teachers that are trying to present that type of information, you're kind of starting to question those teachers of like, why would you even agree with that? This is just bonkers in my mind.
Well, I mean, I think that is more than that. I mean, the teachers also are. If you start to speak about against a certain topic, it could be retaliation from employers. Even though that we say, oh no, we're in a fair system, it's really not. And I would be inclined to think about my income. Many of the teachers are parents, so how's this going to affect my household if I decide to speak out against it? So it is very concerning. Now, what are the ages that this is being taught?
It's middle school.
It's middle school.
Yes.
Wow.
And most of the time that would be 8th grade, because 6th grade is world history, 7th grade is geography, and 8th grade is American history. So that's probably when it would be.
Let's go back to that parental piece. So we know we just celebrated the Parental Rights Month, Doc, and you guys signed that proclamation. So, and I love the fact that you put it out there as a parent. It is your right to say, my child will not learn this. And I think a lot of times you don't really get that, right? I mean,
right.
But you're 100% right. Parental rights work in both ways, whether you want something done or whether you want something not to take place.
Right.
But this is another concern of mine. Not many of us as parents are as involved with our kids as most. I can say, thankfully, I have a job where I can be active.
Right.
My wife can be active, but that is not the reality for the majority of these kids. Parents go to work and they don't pay attention to a lot of the stuff, and their children are not relaying that information to the parent. It just gets lost. So you're now having many of them sitting through this feeling uncomfortable because they have this topic. They look at their skin. I know for a fact that we don't really talk about much, but growing up in the school system, I was like, well, we know there's black as slaves, and where were the Hispanics at? And it gets lost. And
you guys benefit apparently.
Well, in all of this, I looked at it and we were treated as the same, right? So now my children go on into the school thinking it's like, oh, okay, blacks benefit from slavery, but if there was a Hispanic person there, it would be thrown into that same mix. And so it is just something that is not being taught. It's not, there's no differentiation between the two back in those days. So I mean, for a child to be sitting there listening to this as how your ancestors benefited from it, it is very uncomfortable without having a choice.
So Doc, will this be something in the Focus portal that the parent will have to agree to in the beginning, or is it something where if the parent requests, then the form gets filled out? Because I know with the library, which I never thought in my life I would fill out a form to give permission there, but is this going to be similar to that, or is this something where it's available to the parent to say?
I don't know yet, because we have to look at this. This is the first time it's coming through, because we have the standard, and then this information was a clarification. So I'll have to talk with Dr. Moore about that to see if when parents could be notified that that's coming up. And as far as a standard, I think they talked about the trades they learned and everything. So again, I guess what I keep going back to is, to my knowledge, we're the only state that has done that as far as standards with slavery being a personal benefit. I just think people still need to, express their concerns to the state and let them know that this is just not the right thing to do. And as Pedro was talking about, that's true. We have a lot of people that, are working and may not pay attention to it. That's hard every day coming home and checking everything with your children, but at least they could talk to their teacher at the beginning of the year to say, when is this going to happen?
But, I think that brings me to schools and parents should be brought up to speed on this. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's, SAC, PTA, because at the end of the day, you look at these school board meetings and it's the same people. How are we bringing these other parents? I couldn't imagine parents of Dodgertown, in these predominantly African-American communities, hearing this type of stuff and saying, oh, sure, yeah, teach my kid that. So I think, to go back to Pedro's point as to, if you're not involved and you're not engaged, I can say the word board docs right now, and maybe Adam and Pedro probably won't even know what I'm talking about, right? But I live off board docs,
right.
Doc.
I do too.
But Pedro, you want to chime in?
No, I don't know
About board docs. I have no
board
clue.
docs, Pedro.
I have
You
no clue.
understand that? Do you know that's where you can see your agenda and see if Doc puts a discussion item? It's on board docs. See, Pedro had no idea. Adam, new community activist, he don't know.
Nope, don't know. My wife's a school teacher. I feel pretty bad about this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We were talking about parental rights, and one thing I added about the proclamation, I guess that will be the month of October, is that at that time, I want to bring in, representatives from each school, because we have parents helping our schools on a regular basis, whether it's just volunteer and helping with a teacher, a school advisory council, a band or athletic booster, the clubs that we have. There are parents going in on a regular basis and giving many, many hours to our schools and our bands and our athletics and so forth. So
Gotta celebrate them.
That's what I want to do. I want to do that with our parents who are there, positive, helping us with our children every day, because there are parental rights and parental responsibilities. But I want to recognize those parents that come in. I think we do a pretty good job at the school level, but we need to do better at the district level with parent recognition. So I want to move that into that also.
I think that's a great idea. And I used to love those parent engagement meetings at the district level. And I asked Dr. Moore some months back, and I forgot to follow up. But even though parent engagement does begin at the school, and it shouldn't maybe come from district down, there still should be a district version of it to just kind of check to see what's happening. Because I got to tell you, the climate at some schools, for example, Osceola Magnet, you couldn't kick the parents out of school, right?
Yes.
Then when I got to middle school, I'm like, oh, cool, where's the PTA? There isn't one. I'm like, oh, huh.
Right.
Well, Osceola, it was like 2 miles down the road.
Yeah.
So I think, how do we keep that healthy culture from the elementary school to the middle school?
Right.
And I visited, when I was PTA president, Rosewood and all these schools that do an amazing job.
Yes.
When you hear how many hours and how much money to benefit their schools.
Yes.
And one of the things I said when I was PTA president, I said, hey, Rosewood Magnet, adopt a school. Go to Oslo Middle, one of these schools that aren't bringing in $100,000 a year, right? And I think that's what it really takes, is getting some of these schools to team up with those ones that maybe can't have a parent that can come during the day because it's a single parent household.
Exactly.
So how do we fix that?
And I think your idea with elementary, and I think I was at that Rosewood meeting with you at PTA, and it is important because it's not that parents lose interest. Please don't get me wrong. It's just that, they are just so very busy. And that doesn't mean they have to be there during the school day. Sometimes just helping a teacher after school or helping like a kindergarten teacher cut up things that they need for, you can do that at home.
Sure.
You don't have to be at the school. So
and we have to engage all parents.
Absolutely.
Those parents that are in the shelter right now, how do we engage them?
Yes.
They have a right to come to school board meetings.
Absolutely.
They have a right to be engaged. And I think that's what we need to look at next.
And I think that's important when you said about the shelter, because most of those students go to Citrus, I believe.
Correct.
And I know they love Mrs. Jones at
She's
Citrus.
amazing.
And it doesn't have to be during the day, because I know people are working, but how they can help after at home doing what they can help, with their teachers. So listen, I remember when School Advisory Council started in the early 90s, and a lot of the principals saying, oh, no, I don't want my parents on campus. I'm saying, bring them on. They can help.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a collaboration with parents and the school. It's a collaboration. So
100%.
Yes.
And one of the things I want to mention real quick, and then we'll get back to our sponsors over here, is that you're everywhere, Doc.
Oh, yeah.
And I think not just as a community member, but as a parent, that says a lot to me. That when I tune into an ESC PAC meeting, I'm like, there's Doc Jones, or, it's PTA night, or it's back to school. You're everywhere, Doc. And I heard you in the beginning. I guess you're not 50 because you've been in education 50 years, so you're a little bit older, Doc.
Yeah, right.
And also Mrs. Barenborg. I mean, many of these community events, and it doesn't even have to be in your district. And I think a lot of times people get confused. I make this joke with Commissioner Amos because she'll end up in Gifford, everywhere else. I'm like, do you have a district, Commissioner Amos? But just because it's your district doesn't mean that a parent outside of your district can't say, Doc Jones, here's what's happening. Can you help me? you will help all students.
Right. And I've kind of been that way most of my life, even as a principal or whatever. It just wasn't my school. But I believe when I'm out, not just with school activities, but community activities, and we have committee assignments, I learn more about the community, and that helps me more as a school board member. This area might say, okay, we need help here, or this one says, I don't understand this. It's just being out there. I think it's important. But number one, I love doing it. I love being around students, community, teachers, parents. I just love being out there because I think it's important to know that, I'm working each day to make our school system better. And the more I know from our community, because those are our students and our families, that will help our school district.
That's awesome, Doc.
Thank you.
Lastly, we got school will be starting up right around the corner.
Yeah.
There's many back to school events. Team Success will be sponsoring at Citrus. Principal Jones, we've committed once again that we're going to have school supplies for those little stingers over there. And we've also committed to Dodgertown Elementary, Principal Bagley, another amazing principal.
Yes.
So if you have some school supplies, you can drop them off to Orc Services or Pedro Realtor will pick them up. And Doc, I'm sure you're going to be visiting many of these back to school.
Right.
What do you got coming up? I know you're everywhere, but
Well, I know. I'm trying to think.
What's going on in the community, Doc?
I'm trying to think as far as, I know there's a planning and zoning meeting today at the city council. Tomorrow I'm going to be visiting the pre-K summer school programs.
Oh, that's awesome.
And of course we had step into K and then we have pre-K, but the step into K system where the students get a little bit used to what kindergarten will be like, that is absolutely wonderful. So that's this week. I'm trying to think next week I have to look at my calendar each day, but I get out to summer school. I went to the gifted program at Liberty last week. We haven't done that in a while. And it was wonderful. I think there were close to 80 to 100 students that have been there. So, and that's the time they can all get together with different schools, not just their school, but every day there is something.
That is awesome, Doc.
But I love doing it.
Well, once again, we know you do. We love having you today, Doc. You're the community's buddy, as I like to refer to you, buddy. So before we go, last couple of minutes, Adam, got anything you want to chime in with?
Yeah.
What'd you think? Doc did pretty good today, huh?
Well,
22 minutes straight of all the stuff she's done.
Right. I absolutely love
go.
Doc Jones. So I'm a supporter, a big fan, and I think that anybody that's in a position like she is, and she's out there putting her eyes and ears on all these different events, and she can see it firsthand. It's hard to steer the ship if you're blind.
And that's an expectation of elected officials, Doc.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you holding up to your.
Yeah. So we're out here trying to do the good stuff too here at Orc Services. So if you have any property damage, you need a good contractor, give us a call.
Awesome. Pedro, what about you? You got to pick up some pencils for us?
Yes, we do. And if there's any teachers out there or anybody in education, give me a shout.
Awesome. A couple of things we got coming up. Our golf tournament is July 13th. We still need 10 more teams. And even if you don't want to play golf, $450, your business can sponsor a team. July 13th, we've teamed up once again with Vista Plantation. It's going to be a great one, guys. So please, if you're interested, 772-236-7770. Team Success is your only indigent moving company here on the Treasure Coast. Thanks to our partners over at Treasure Coast Homeless Services, we move families out of local shelter, Safe Space, Hope for Families, Samaritan Center, and many others. And we couldn't do that without the generosity of our supporters and our donors. And as always, baby, it's I am, you are, we are. It's Team Success, the Doc Jones Lifelong Educator Edition. Pedro, Adam, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.